The three presidential jets are mostly in the news this morning. Look at the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Anger as French court orders seizure of three presidential jets. Story is on page 2. Of a dispute between Ogun State and Chinese firm. FG has no contractual obligation with Chinese firm presidency. Process attaching aircraft to contract fraudulent, according to Ogun's government. Seized presidential jets as sovereign assets. Immune from attachment, according to AGF. Says legal diplomatic steps on course to ensure discharge of inappropriate order. Secret purchase of presidential jets despite outcry insensitive. That's from Peter Obi. Find the details on the inside pages of the paper. Daily Independent has this one as well. FG clarifies seizure of Nigeria's three presidential jets in France. Assures on steps to discharge inappropriate orders against jets. China's firm plotting to strip Nigeria's offshore assets. That's from the presidency. Firm misled French court on presidential aircraft, according to Ogun government. Obi says seizure is international embarrassment, asks FG to come clean. The front page of the Daily Times newspaper has the same story. French court seizes Nigerian presidential jets over $74.5 million dispute. FG taking legal diplomatic steps to recover seized presidential aircraft. That's from the AGF. Ogun government moves to vacate seizure order. Aircraft seizure, an international embarrassment. That's from Peter Obi. Look at the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. FG Ogun government battle to recover seized presidential jets. Chinese firm secures Paris court order. Order attempt by Chinese company to strip Nigeria of assets. That's from presidency. Ogun government folds fraudulent legal process. It's an international embarrassment. That's from Peter Obi. You find the details of that story on the inside pages of the paper this morning. The same story is on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct. Alleged $74.5 million debt. Presidency Chinese firm in tug of war. Presidency Chinese firm in tug of ownership over presidential jets abroad. Ogun government flees seizure, says Zongshan's actions fraudulent. An embarrassing leadership failure. Obi blasts FG. That story is on page 3. Other stories on the front page this morning. Business Day. Retirees die of hunger 3 decades after serving Nigeria. This is not good. FG owes 250 billion naira pensions as of May 2024. Equally shocking is this one on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. Petrol pump price nears 1,000 naira per litre in FCT in states. Supply off nationwide. CSO knocks NNPCL. National Oil Company silent. Find the details of that story on the front page. It continues on the inside pages of the paper. The Guardian newspaper reminds us of Olympics. Rinse and repeat. Nigeria awaits Los Angeles Olympics after Paris 9 billion naira poor outing. It's the big story on pages 4 and 5 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. This is all the dailies we have for you today.
All right. Well, quite a number of stories stick out immediately on the front page. How can we ignore this scandal that broke yesterday? The French authorities issuing a court order seizing Nigeria's presidential jets. Of course, I think that I'm kind of happy. I'm kind of happy that the presidential candidate of the Labour Party immediately picked up on that. And some of the issues he picked up on is the fact that that particular matter is very embarrassing, one. And then two, the fact that a brand new jet, which the federal government had been very quiet on, because there had been allegations that they were about to buy a brand new jet. In fact, when the House of Representatives came up with that issue, recommending the purchase of a brand new jet, some people said that the jet was already purchased and that they were just looking for some people to give it some approval or find justification for why a new jet was needed. It does appear now that in spite of all of the silence, what they were trying to keep quiet is finally out in the open. As I said, a lot of things stick out. That's not the main focus. That's not my main focus this morning, but one cannot ignore that particular matter. We finally found out that, okay, the Ogun State government and the Chinese company or a Chinese company are the ones who have a problem, and the federal government of Nigeria has been dragged into the issue. While we wait for clarity and, you know, a proper resolution of the matter, I think that Nigerians are owed explanation on what is happening and how that matter is going to be resolved. That is on the one hand. But the Daily Trust, the front page of the Daily Trust is the one that is really my concern this morning, and I'm sure the concern of many Nigerians, which is this petrol pump price nears 1,000 naira per litre in the FCT and states. Supply on, off, nationwide, CSO, NOx, NNPCL. Is it possible for them to be a little more, or not a little more, is it possible for the NNPCL to be transparent? Is it possible for us to get a briefing? Okay, so maybe if this is outside the remit of the NNPC, because some people will argue that, look, this is a policy matter. This is about the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. And we know that the president, excuse me, has decided to retain that title as the Minister of Petroleum. Who we see right beside, remember the last time we had Senator Heineken Lokobiri here, all he kept on saying was, I'm not the one in charge, I shall find out from the NNPCL, I will clarify. That was all we heard. So is it possible for us to have a joint meeting? Maybe perhaps led by the president himself, you know, broken questions, taking questions on what the situation really is with petrol. Because if we have been told that if the promise of the removal of subsidies was that, oh, you're going to be swimming in enough petrol, queues will be a thing of the past, and yet here we are, how many months after petrol subsidies have been ostensibly taken away, people are still spending long hours at filling stations, dealing with station managers that have turned tin gods. Is it possible for us to really know what is going on? Why do we have these queues? Can there be transparency? I don't care about a bit. Can there be transparency with regards to this? I think that Nigerians have had it up to their noses, not knowing what is happening with petrol and having to queue for it every time that they have to, you know, get supplies.
A lot needs to be clarified, yes. But, you know, again, it will still be with the president. Because I don't know, I do not think, I mean, you could correct me if I'm wrong on this one, anyone watching too, because I don't think any leadership or any manager or anything, anyone in NNPCL can unilaterally just say, look, this is going to be the price of petrol without the final stamp or approval of the president. I don't think, ever think, that can never happen.
So I say the president owes us that.
Exactly. So that's why we're here. When the president came in and announced that, oh, subsidy was gone, you heard the NNPC response. Oh, whoa, we didn't know, we didn't see this coming. They were in the dark. And so you see, he is the Minister of Petroleum. So you don't have Minister of State for Petroleum and then gas. They still report to him. So that's how sensitive that matter is. So he needs to come forward on this one. Look, we know that there are usually political considerations when it comes to this matter. Because if he looks and says, look, I mean, the other day, somebody told us that the Minister of Finance had said in another forum that, look, we're paying subsidy. This is being paid. And then the Minister of Budget and Planning did say here as well, well, NNPC has not remitted. Is it possible for them not to remit and government is not up in arms with them if they're not using it for a purpose of which government approves of?
You know, it's interesting. I also remember the response of the Minister of State, Senator Heineken. He kept on saying, you know, yes, subsidy has been taken away, but that's not to say that the federal government cannot intervene.
So you see, that's to the back door.
What will we call the intervention of the federal government? Will it still be right to call it subsidy? You can call it whatever you want.
So you see that? What is that? That's a subsidy.
I think, you know, at the end of the day, at the core of this is what Markwell raised earlier, which is that of communication. Come clean. And I think it's the same thing. It's the same thing that Mr. Peter was talking about.
Yeah.
He said, look, the federal government needs to come clean. So when we don't have sufficient information, guess what? We will fill in the blanks. the people will fill in the blanks.
Especially when the blanks are so obvious.
Especially when the blanks are so obvious, and many in a sentence, and the verbs are not there. Who will pull in the verbs? Okay, the people will put in the verbs, and guess what? The consequences would remain agitations.
Because look,
different levels of
no smoke without fire, they say.
Exactly.
The petrol landing costs, for instance, who says it's not up to 1,200?
Already.
If they are, and how are they sustaining this? How long can they sustain this for? Where is the resources coming to sustain this? How much barrels are we producing? All of those vandalism going on.
We do understand,
our production capacity.
We do understand that the federal government and the various levels of government owe it a duty to themselves and to Nigerians to protect us with certain information. Because sometimes you give out some information and it as Chamberlain would say, will bite you in the butt. However, there is certain information that can put people's minds at rest. Buying fuel for 1,000 naira per litre, well, maybe we'll get there eventually, but can we have some time? Can we have some respite? Okay, if I have the money and I can afford to buy the fuel at 1,000 naira per litre, of course, why not? But in the situation where I'm struggling to get the money and the prices continue to increase.
And it's not available.
And it's unavailable.
And you have to still queue.
I saw queues. I didn't know this is what you guys... what you guys go through.
Look at this man.
Oh gosh, you guys go through this.
But we're glad that you're here, because if you weren't here and we're telling you about it, it would seem like we're exaggerating.
I've seen your queues on the front pages of the press. I don't know, because not that we don't have queues in Lagos either. I'm just saying.
It's just the political correctness. Government is trying to be politically correct, because if they let us know, look, this is
give us information.
Then people will make a meal out of it. But look, it is what it is.
Give us the information that at least will put people's minds at rest. What stands out for me, Mawkwe, is also on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, but at the bottom of the page, flood, 3.7 million residents, 362 communities at risk. That's coming from NEMA. Look at the bottom of the page. And it is not something that is unknown to us. It's not something that is coming to us strange. Front page of Daily Times newspaper has a similar story, and it actually says Kano is just one of 27 states where this is going to happen. NEMA advises immediate relocation as flood hits 27 states, warns 362 vulnerable communities at high risk of flood in Kano. One state, that level of vulnerability, definitely something that is concerning. And the impact on food cannot also be remonstrated. The impact of flooding on food cannot be sidelined or sidetracked. We know that, there are a number of people who are saying the indices of inflation have come down because of the price of food in some certain food items that have reduced. At the same time, the risk is still high if this level of vulnerability is still on 27 states. And I'm very sure there's hardly a state in Nigeria that doesn't deal in one agricultural product or the other. So 27 states out of 36, how many do we have left? I don't even know if those ones are, so I think it is something to give, for government to give attention to, and let's drill it down to the local communities. 362 vulnerable communities in one state alone. How many vulnerable communities in other states? Something.
A few days ago, my husband and I were having a conversation, and he said, he gave a Yoruba proverb. He said, Ogun asotele. I now told him, just in case people are wondering what that means, a war that was long foretold, does not kill a cripple that is wise. A war that was long for. I hope I'm translating that correctly.
No, yes, you are.
A war that was long
foretold. We should give you an award for that one.
Does not kill a cripple that is wise.
Is the petrol price the war?
No. I'm looking at what Ayo is talking about in regards to flood and food. And I told him, I remember in that conversation, I said, look, the caveat there is a cripple that is wise. It's not that doesn't kill a cripple. The cripple must be wise. So I hope that when they're issuing all of these warnings, that we apply wisdom, that people are proactive and saying these things have been foretold. How can we mitigate the effect? You cannot stop rain from falling. It is sure to come. Maybe the deluge is going to be more than we can handle, even if we cleared all the drains. How can we make sure that we don't lose lives? And how can we make sure that we salvage whatever it is that we salvage? These are the kinds of things that we should see. There should be some proactivity. It shouldn't happen and then people lose their lives and then we're wondering, then what was the essence of the people who actually took pains to warn us? What is the essence of their jobs?
Well, one of the key words there is education. Educate the people. They need to know what to do, how to proceed. So we'll talk about education in just a moment. So stay on with us.